Hello everyone, this is Kritika Narayanan and thank you for joining me today. In this video, I'm going to talk about the EIA Draft 2020, which has been in the center of many controversies in recent months. So what is an EIA? EIA stands for Environment Impact Assessment, which is a process which evaluates all possible environmental impacts of a proposed project, for example, like a mining project or a highway project. The process also takes into consideration various socio-economic, cultural and human health impacts of a proposed project. This process includes various stages such as screening, scoping, public hearings and appraisals. This process ensures that the proposed project does not damage the environment too much. The Union Environmental Ministry recently published the EIA Draft 2020 with the intention of replacing the existing EIA notification of 2006. You can access this newly proposed EIA Draft 2020 in the website below. Environmental activists have flagged several key problem areas in this newly proposed EIA draft, which they say dilutes the EIA process, thus weakening several critical defenses which are meant for environmental protection. The first one is with regards to public consultation. Consulting the public is an important democratic process and the EIA draft dilutes it. It shortens the period of public consultation hearings to a maximum of just 40 days. It also reduces from 30 to 20 days the time provided for the public to submit their responses during a public hearing. How will project affected people, who are sometimes mostly forest dwellers or do not have access to information and technology, give their comments, feedbacks and objections at such short notice? Also, a vague new category of projects called strategic projects have also been added, which would be determined by the central government, and they are free from public consultation requirements. The details of these strategic projects will also not be placed in the public domain. The EIA draft also exempts public consultation for linear projects like oil and gas pipelines and highways in border areas. A border area is defined as an area which falls within 100 kilometers aerial distance from the line of actual control with bordering countries of India. That would cover many areas, especially in the northeast, which is rich in biodiversity. Many environmentally hazardous industries are also exempt from the public consultation process. Some of them are offshore and onshore oil, gas and shale exploration projects, hydroelectric projects up to 25 megawatts, irrigation projects between 2,000 and 10,000 hectares, small and medium cement plants, acids other than phosphoric, ammonia or sulfuric acid, micro, small and medium enterprises in dye and dye intermediaries, bulk drugs, synthetic rubber, medium-sized paint units, all inland waterways projects, expansion or widening of highways between 25 kilometers and 100 kilometers. Also, citizens cannot take cognizance of violations of projects, which is another troubling aspect of this EIA draft, because the power to officially report environmental violations in the projects is with the project developers themselves and government authorities, leaving no scope for directly affected people or communities to report violations. The scope of the EIA process has also been reduced. Industries that previously required a full environmental impact assessment do not need them anymore. For example, the draft exempts up to 1,50,000 square meters construction projects from the assessment. Earlier, the exemption was granted to construction projects of only up to 20,000 square meters. The draft notification also exempts maintenance dredging from requiring environmental clearance. This can have significant impact on coastal and river ecosystems. The basis for classification of projects for requiring EIA process or environmental clearance mainly depends on their size and capacity and not on their impact on the environment. The size of a project and the environmental risks it could cause may not always be directly proportional. It also extends the validity period for environmental clearances in critical sectors such as mining. For mining projects, the environmental clearance validity period has been increased from 30 to 50 years, and for river valley projects, the validity has been increased from 10 to 15 years. After the project is given environmental clearance, there is a monitoring process in place to see whether they are complying with all the norms, and a compliance report must be submitted. the draft EIA notification halves the frequency of compliance reporting requirements from every 6 months to just only once a year. Another problematic area is the ex post facto clearance route. It applies for ongoing or completed projects for which environmental clearance was never sought or granted, but the construction of the project took place regardless, violating norms. Such projects can now easily get environmental clearance after paying minor fines for violations. A recent example of the consequences of post facto regulation is the gas leak at the LG Polymers factory in Visakhapatnam, which killed nearly 12 people. This unit was operating without an environmental clearance, and it was due to be considered for a grant of a post facto environmental clearance. The timeline of events are as follows. On April 11, the draft notification was published in the Gazette, and objections from citizens were invited within 60 days. On April 24th, the draft notification was published on parivesh.nic.in and environmentclearance.nic.in. These two websites are environmental ministry websites, but they were published only in English and Hindi. There was no publication of the notification EIA draft in any regional or local newspapers. On May 5th, after several representations to the ministry, the deadline for inviting objections from the general public was arbitrarily extended by another 60 days to June 30th. But on June 30th, the deadline was again extended to August 11 because the ministry was asked to make the notification available in 22 regional languages within 10 days. On July 16th, Karnataka High Court directed the Environmental Ministry to give wide publicity to the EIA draft notification and translate it into official languages of all states and asked for a deadline extension. On August 5th, Karnataka High Court directed that the EIA draft should not be notified as a law till wide publicity is given to the draft notification and made available in all official Indian languages so that people from across the nation can be made aware of the draft and can give their feedback or objections on it. The EIA draft cannot be finalized till the next date of hearing, which is on 7th of September. On August 6th, the Madras High Court also issued a notice to the centre to translate the EIA draft into vernacular languages and also asked for it to provide sufficient time for people to send in their objections. EIA Draft 2020 has been embroiled in many controversies. 3 environmental websites which were spreading awareness about the negative impacts of the proposed EIA draft were blocked. One of the websites which was blocked was Fridays for Future India, an organization affiliated with international environmental activist Greta Thunberg. After internet censorship criticisms, the websites were later unblocked. The Delhi police in July also booked Fridays for Future India under the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act. The case was later withdrawn. Why is a strong EIA process important? Many recent industrial mishaps like the oil field blast in Assam and gas leak in Visakhapatnam highlight the importance of having in place a robust EIA process. Also, India is very vulnerable to climate change, which manifests as intense cyclones, erratic rainfall and intense summers, which affects the livelihoods of millions of people across the country and thus indirectly negatively impacts the economy. Hence, protecting the environment is important now more than ever. The recent blast in an oil field in Bagjan, Assam caused irreparable damage to the surrounding ecosystems. It is situated only a few kilometers away from a protected forest, and the fire in the oil field is still burning nearly a month after the accident. Recent proposals for expansion and modifications for hydrocarbon drilling and testing in that oil field took place without applying for fresh environmental clearances and public hearings. With the absence of stringent environmental safeguards, incidents like these are bound to increase with greater frequency, which is why the EIA Draft 2020 is very problematic. What can you do about it? This EIA draft is yet to be made into a law, and before it can be notified as a law, the public, that is you, can give your feedback, suggestions or objections regarding it to the Environmental Ministry. You can send them to the Secretary, Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change at this mailing address, or send them your objections or feedback to this email address. The EIA Draft 2020 weakens several critical defenses which are meant for environmental protection and enables industries to escape environmental accountability. In the name of ease of doing business and boosting our economy, we cannot be callous towards our environment. Environmental regulation policies must aim for sustainable development and not environmental destruction. They should not be seen as a regulatory burden. This is Kritika Narayanan signing off. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, please do not forget to like, share, subscribe and comment. Thank you.